Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. I was thinking about how the way that our culture has developed a mindset where we're always supposed to be strong, and even religion can kind of establish a mindset of self-sufficiency. But as I read through the scriptures, both Old and New Covenant scriptures, I see often the fact that God seems to always be working in us, around us, and through us to bring us to the end of ourselves, to bring us to the insufficiency of self-sufficiency. So while we always want to be strong, it isn't our strength that glorifies God. It's our weakness. And we don't like being weak. I remember one of my grandsons was doing something and trying to do something, and stepped in to help him. And his instant response was, me do, me do, me do. Which is funny because I understand he wants to do it on his own. He doesn't want to help. And I don't think that really changes throughout our lives until we realize that the only way to really experience the strength of Christ, to experience the power of Christ, is in our weakness. His sufficiency for our sufficiency. In 2 Corinthians chapter number 12, Paul has been talking about some of the struggles that he had been through. Even though he was a great apostle and evangelist and going throughout the Gentile world, there were many who were jealous and questioned his authority and his capabilities. It seems as though Paul was not the most eloquent of speakers or the best looking of men, but he had great revelations from God. And in verse number 7, he says, so to keep me from becoming conceited, because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Is that just amazing? Well, theologians have been debating about what this thorn in the flesh was. Obviously, its authorship was a messenger of Satan. Some theologians think that Paul had some eye disease because he seemed to have trouble writing. But, I don't want to lock in on that. I want you to see this. He realized that even when Satan was harassing him, it was being used for good. He says very clearly, to keep him from becoming conceited. God had blessed him with incredible revelations, incredible power, seeing wonderful miracles and deliverances and healings. And so there was a temptation to get full of himself, to start to attribute to himself what was a gift from God. Christ in him, Christ living through him. And so that even when we are blessed to be vessels in which Christ uses us and manifests his life in the world and see the miraculous. It's never about us. It's always about him. We should never be conceited. Then he says, well, 3 times I went to the Lord to be delivered from this thing. And he said, my grace is sufficient for you. Listen, God does not promise you or me a life without conflict, a life without trials. In fact, he promises us a life with trials and conflict, persecution. But he says, my grace, my unmerited favor, my presence, that is sufficient for you. And it's sufficient for you and sufficient for me. Because when we come to the end of our own resources, we realize this: he is my sufficiency. He goes on, he says, for my power is made perfect in weakness. God tells Paul, and he tells you and I, that the power of God is perfected not in our strengths, not in our talents, and not in our giftedness, but in our weakness. So there's no reason for us to pretend, to wear masks, to act like we got it all together and we're always strong. He's saying, listen, it's okay to be weak, because in my weakness, in my insufficiency, I begin to experience his power. His grace is sufficient. And so Paul says, therefore I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. I guess it's part of the fallen human nature that we like to boast about our accomplishments and our possessions and our titles. But Paul made the choice to boast in his weakness, because there was something he desired more than anything else. And that was the experience of the power of Christ resting upon him. Is that your hunger? That the power of Christ, the Greek word dynamis, the explosive energy of God to be released in you and through you, is that what you desire? That comes in our weakness. For the sake of Christ, then I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. I'll tell you, I still struggle sometimes being weak. But as I have been battling my Parkinson's disease, I realize ever more. It reminds me of my utter dependence on him. Insults, sometimes they're hard to take. Hardships, persecutions, calamities. Okay, Lord, because all of these things reveal my insufficiency. And when I acknowledge I'm weak, then I have tapped in to the incredible strength of God. And I hope you, like me, hunger for the experience of this more than anything else. You have a great day. I love you.